Yes, my people, welcome to another episode of Everything is Wrestling. I'm your host, Tugi, and we are here where all talk is only about wrestling, the best, the fun times, and the entertainment. And we get straight into it with another recap of Monday Night Raw, which took place at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. Now I can't butcher that one, which is good, which is really good. Now we opened up the show with the advocate, the manager, the special Paul Heyman, and obviously beside him was the beast of the Octagon, Brock Lesnar. So we got straight into it. And Paul Heyman arrives with Brock Lesnar, arriving in with a squad of police, Dallas, Texas Police Department, which blocks off the ramp. Now, after the cheers and excitement for Brock Lesnar, the crowd quickly turns and starts cheering, Oba, Oba, ooh, Oba. Now, Brock Lesnar notices, acknowledges, and little to his excitement, Paul Heyman turns and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, and introducing the champion of the cage, the beast of the Octagon, like I said before, Brock Lesnar." Now, Heyman claims that Obafemi turned down his guaranteed SummerSlam title shot because that's how obsessed he is with Brock Lesnar and has an obsessive fixation. That's Stark level. That's obsessed to an unhealthy degree. Obafemi is a real big dummy. Obafemi, talk shit, get hit, which is what we saw happen before. Not only is Obafemi obsessed with Brock Lesnar, but Brock Lesnar, my client Brock Lesnar, is obsessed with Obafemi. I called Brock when he was out on a hunting trip, and I said to Brock, how's the hunting trip going? He says, I can't wait to get inside Hell in a Cell with Obafemi. I called Brock when he was at training camp and asked Brock, how's the training going? He says, I can't wait to get inside Hell in a Cell with Obafemi. Brock being obsessed with someone is what Dallas, Texas is used to called violence. Heyman stated that he obtained a restraining order from the Dallas judge that his father knew from years ago, who done him a favor and kept them to keep them 100 feet apart. He got a restraining order against the two of them. Now, truth be told, I also got a restraining order against my client, Brock Lesnar. Dun, 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 dun. Then Obafemi arrives. Sometimes, honestly, I just listen to that entrance music, like with my headphones, just to feel the tension. Because when the lights go down, the silhouette comes out. It's absolutely beautiful. Obafemi arrives, comes straight down the ramp, gets the microphone, and before he has an opportunity to do anything else, he comes out and he says, I came here for a fight tonight, but before I get to it, I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain what the hell this is. Paul Heyman turns around and says, you want an explanation? It's very simple. You, sir, are in violation of a so ordered by the court restraining order. Gentlemen, do your job. And Brock and Heyman exit the ring. Within seconds of the Dallas, Texas Police Department attempting to do their job, Obafemi dismantles, dismisses the so-called restraining order, and proceeds to dismantle the police officers by throwing them out of the ring one by one. He throws one out, he double choke slams the other two, lariats the fourth, and then throws the fifth onto the four outside of the ring, who just dropped them like pins, like bowling pins. He grabs the microphone and says, "What are these games? What are you playing at? Running, BSing, low blows, attacking from behind. You used to run this place. Now all you do is run away." Oba explained that he skipped his opportunity, his title opportunity, because he knew Brock would interfere. He demanded a Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam to settle their feud without interference. Here's the deal: SummerSlam, Hell in a Cell, Oba Femi, Brock Lesnar. No more games, no more running, no more BS, no more low blows. You can't run from the ruler. You can't run from the destroyer. You can't run from the bringer of war. You can't run from Oba Femi. The crowd goes wild. Oba, Oba, Oba. Boom. The segment ends with his beautiful silhouette and then his fist to the sky closes the opening section. Fantastic start to Monday Night Raw. That's exactly what I expected. This goes straight into Io Sky, the genius of the Sky, battling against Roxanne Perez, who was obviously accompanied by the greatest women's champion of all time, Liv Morgan, and the self-proclaimed big mommy sexy, that is Raquel Rodriguez. Now, it's very interesting because Io Sky has actually defeated everyone in the Judgment Day, in the Queen of the Ring tournament before that, and then obviously to become the Queen of the Ring herself by defeating Liv Morgan. Now, during the match, Io landed a springboard moonsault to the floor outside of the ring. Liv provided obviously a distraction, allowing Roxanne to blindside her, and heading into the commercial break, upon returning, Roxanne traps Io in a tree of woe, kicking at her knee, focusing on that and damaging that, and Io fights back, blocking a moonsault attempt by hitting a butterfly backbreaker and her patented missile dropkick. Now, after Roxanne misses a corner strike, Io attempted a crossface before obviously once again being interrupted by outside interference. Roxanne attempts a roll-up, but Io reverses into a pinning predicament for the actual victory. Now, Io Sky is victorious, but obviously following the match, the attackers targeted Io's leg. Now, Sol Ruka, she comes flying out, attempts to save, but the power of Raquel Rodriguez caught her mid-air, slams her into the barricade before powerbombing her against the ring post. Back in the ring, Liv Morgan hits the Oblivion on Io Sky, obviously. Roxanne and Raquel hold up Io, and just before Liv struck her across the head with the Women's Championship belt, she claimed, "This is the closest you'll ever get to my title," and once again asserting dominance for the upcoming match at SummerSlam. To end this segment, I don't know how she does it, but with those amazing high heel boots of hers, Liv Morgan steps over Io Sky, holding up the title to the sky, and we're left seeing obviously Io in the ring, knocked down, and Sol Ruka outside of the ring, completely knocked down. And this obviously then moves to a very interesting segment because we've got my controversial take of "I'm still humble." Logan Paul and The Vision, obviously Austin Theory, Bron Breakker and the newest member, Maxine Dupree, who celebrate their recent tag team success, who was obviously introduced by Logan Paul. The Vision Queen, Maxine, who was quickly brought to a stop, and their celebrations were brought to a halt because Otis and Akira Tozawa interrupted them to confront Maxine. And after a heated exchange where Theory mocks Otis for apparently about to be confessing his love to Maxine, he steps up to them, and finally, just before he gets too out of hand, Maxine stands in between them. Theory uses this distraction to get behind Otis and give him with a low blow. Ow. Why would you do that low blow? I mean, typical heelish behavior. Bron Breakker then goes and absolutely cuts Tozawa in half with a spear. And after Maxine handed Theory the brass knuckles, he takes it to Otis. He strikes Otis in the face, followed by a rebound spear from Bron to completely dissipate and finish this assault. Showing again, asserting why the Vision are not a force to be reckoned with, and they will take out anyone in front of them, solidifying the newest member to their faction, apologies. Now it moves on to a match that just sort of started completely during commercial break. Now, Jimmy Uso is facing against Royce Keys, and upon returning to the broadcast, the action was short-lived before yet another break was called. So we were a bit confused. And once returning again, Keys executes a power slam on Jimmy with ease. And suddenly on the side, we see from a distance, from backstage, the Samoan werewolf, Jacob, turning up. And he comes straight into the ring. And he causes a disqualification by jumping Keys. Bit of an abrupt end, but following the match, Fatu sets Keys up into the corner with a steel chair around his head, intending to do what he showed us before, but this time it looked like he was going to follow through. And once he was about to hit the running attack, what happens? Dun, 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 dun. I'm taking it all. Solo Sikoa emerges from the crowd. Now, he came to intervene and to stop Jacob Fatu. Solo declares and comes into the ring and says, I was lost. I was being stupid, okay? Blood, look. Blood is thicker than water. Butchering these accents, but we work on them. And claimed that I'm coming home to the family, okay? Solo Sikoa raises his one to the sky in unity, only to then turn the one into the thumb and betray Jimmy and Fatu with a Samoan spike on Jimmy Uso, big brother, big jam, and elbows and a flurry of punches to Jacob. Now, I don't know why he thought this was the right thing to do, because a brawl breaks out and it starts to take place between Sikoa, Fatu, Jimmy, and then obviously Keys recovers to assist. And then out of nowhere, LA Knight, rushes into the ring with a steel chair to clear the heels. Grabs the microphone, turns around and goes, I owe you both for last week, so come up here and get it. Yeah. If you thought that was enough, nada. And every time LA Knight has his say, I absolutely adore it, because he gets the crowd working with him. He makes you listen. He talks sense. Eventually, he challenges the Bloodline to a 6-man tag at SummerSlam, where he would team with Keys and Sikoa. So you all walk down here, get smacked back to factory settings, and we can put the part line in the rear view mirror, with everybody saying LA9, yeah. That just put a cap on that segment, and fantastic ending to that first full half. Now, we go straight into backstage, but obviously the Vision had their antics moments ago, and Paul Heyman confronts them. He comes across them and he says, now that is what I call a vision for the future. Paul Heyman praises them for their performance. Now, Braun Breaker shows everyone that you don't mess with Braun Breaker. Logan Paul is healing faster than Conor McGregor. And you, Austin Theory, stand by your woman, which makes me very proud, young man. And you, Maxine, wow. Austin Theory turns and says, so, we all getting back together? Maxine was so magnificent tonight. What the hell do you need me for? And declares that because Maxine had handled herself so well, they no longer need Paul Heyman's services, effectively walking away from the group, leaving us not knowing what is going on. It cuts now to another segment between Adam Pearce, General Manager Adam Pearce, and Obafemi. Adam Pearce informs Obafemi that Heyman's restraining order and the police officers was all staged bluffs, all mind games, as he said. Oba noted that this proved that Brock and Heyman were clearly fearful of him, and this is why they're trying to play mind games. I knew they would, because they remember what I did to Brock at WrestleMania. If they thought that was bad, wait till they see what I do to him inside hell in a cell. I cannot wait for that match at SummerSlam, because it's just going to be a sheer beast versus beast. Now, this cuts to something which has been taking my interest to a slight degree, because it's now Bayley in the ring calling out Lyra Valkyria, who's had a complete 180 and turned around. And Bayley attempts to speak to Lyra in the ring, but was obviously interrupted by a disheveled looking Lyra Valkyria, claiming Bayley should apologize to her for wasting an entire year. Oh, poor Bayley, with all her past failed friendships, and oh man, stop complaining, Bayley. Lyra accuses Bayley of being a doormat. You're not a locker room leader anymore. You've always been the worst of the 4 horsewomen. That is what I call a low blow, because Bayley's fantastic, and I don't know, maybe she kind of does have a point, because Bayley reports by citing her accolades as a Grand Slam champion, as a Royal Rumble winner, and as one half of the first ever women's tag team champions. Now, she then leads to challenge Lyra at a match at Saturday night's main event at Madison Square Garden, which Adam Pearce had already approved of. The two end up in a brawl, with Lyra eventually getting the upper hand. And this segment ends, and it moves into something which I really actually enjoyed, because I wish I could speak a lot more about this and go into the depth, but because so much happened with the Intercontinental Championship for the number 1 Contenders Gauntlet match, which honestly was a highlight of the WWE episode, even though we end with something fantastic. But this will determine who will face Penta El Zero Miedo at SummerSlam. Now, it starts off with the king of the luchadores, the greatest Mysterio of all time, the AAA Campagnone, Dirty Dominik Mysterio, who was accompanied by that big-headed JD McDonough, and say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry. Wave your hands from side to side and say, I believe in Joe Hendry. Sorry, I thought he appeared. My apologies. It goes into Dominik Mysterio versus Joe Hendry. Now, we're going to go for a quick run through because the Gauntlet match had banger after banger after banger. And after JD McDonough provided obviously a distraction for Dominik Mysterio, he hits Joe Hendry, who put on an absolute battle with a 619 followed by a frog splash. Exits Joe Hendry, enters the young OG, the great Javon Evans, because that boy is bouncy. And oh my God, this guy just destroys any ceiling that you ever believe he had. Like, he showcases a high flying offense, including a dive out to the floor, and despite the interferences attempts, Evans stays in control until you are cast. Danhausen. Danhausen appears on stage in his little Danmobile, or whatever it's called. I actually don't know the name, I forgot. And using his magic and his curses, he tries and then causes a pyro misfire. Oddly enough, the wrong post, because Dominik Mysterio was standing on the other side. This distracts Dominik. He says, come on, JD, just go take care of him. And whilst he's asking JD McDonough to take care of him, surprise, surprise, distraction. He comes off the top rope, misses. That boy Bouncy hits that top rope straight up to the corner, hits the OG cutter for the elimination. Good night, Dominik Mysterio. I'm upset, but I love Javon Evans, so it is what it is. Let me take you to the fame. In comes Dragon Lee. Now, every single time one match ends, the next one just goes straight into it. So Dragon Lee comes round Danhausen's mobile, goes straight towards the ring, and this segment was actually noted probably as one of the best parts in the Gauntlet because the intensity picks up to a sheer high degree. Now, it's highlighted obviously by a massive spot where Javon Evans hip toss Dragon Lee over the barricade into the exposed concrete, into the timekeeper's area, runs all the way around the ring, launching himself again over the timekeeper section. He doesn't actually land in the timekeeper section. He goes over it, taking out Lee once again, and he hits the front row. To do that is insane because it then goes to a transition of roll-ups and gets into the next round after a show of respect. So despite Lee countering a jumping run outside the ring, a tornado DDT inside the ring, Evans kicks out to 2, and then it transitions to a roll-up, and Evans gets into the next round. Now, these two, I am here for it. Dragon Lee and Javon Evans, I thank you, and they showed each other that respect, hugging each other, saying thank you, and I hope they go at it and go face-to-face once again. Now, in comes the absolute Bulgarian brute, Rusev Utvia, Rusev Machka. Rusev arrives and ambushes Evans, knocking Dragon Lee out of the ring because he comes in from behind. Dragon Lee's out the ring, and their fight starts. Rusev dominated. Javon tries to hold on, but fatigue eventually kicks in, and after multiple attempts of trying to break free and attempting an OG cutter, which was reversed, eventually forcing a referee stoppage by locking in the Accolade with his arms across Evans' face. Now, It was sad to see Javon exiting the Gauntlet match like this, but that boy put on a show. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds. Now, Rusev's in the ring, and who comes out? None other than the newly reborn, the recovered Chad Gable. And he enters as the second final participant. Now, he weathers Rusev's power, countering an Uranagi and eventually hitting a German suplex into the turnbuckle, followed by a victory roll to the pin. Swiftly moving on as soon as this pinfall finishes, even after being pinned, Rusev attacks Gable with an accolade. In comes, hit him with the smile, hit him with the smile. Ego. My guy, Ethan Page, enters, looking to obviously capitalize on Gable's weakened state. Now, Gable fights back and escapes an egoplex, hits him with an angle slam, and finally forces Page to tap out with the ankle lock to win the Gauntlet match. Now, that was a series of serious back-to-back matches. And now, after he wins, we now know that Chad Gable will be in his home state of Minnesota at SummerSlam and will be fighting for the Intercontinental title against Penta El Zero Miedo. Could this be his first single WWE title? And it ends with a beautiful face-off between Penta and Chad Gable. Now, that was a lot to take in. And even after that, we put a ribbon onto the show with the contract signing between Roman Reigns and Seth freaking Rollins. Now, Adam Pearce hosts this contract signing for the World Heavyweight Championship match at SummerSlam, like we said. Seth knows as soon as he comes in, he knows, and he states, after seeing the whole entrance of Roman Reigns and after getting Seth Rollins to come in, Seth turns because the OTC is sitting there waiting for him inside the ring, and Seth looks at Roman. He says, Seth, it must be hard for you to listen to the fact that my cheers drown out those OTC chants, and knows it must be difficult for him to face it. But there's some absolutes in life, Roman. Life, death, taxes. Sorry, apologies. There's absolutes in life. Death, taxes, and Seth beats Roman Reigns every single time. Every single time. We know Roman hasn't actually won yet. Crowd chants his music, and Seth is sitting there, puts his legs up. Take it in, man. And Roman says, I wish you did this last week, because last week you bored everyone half to death. And when he was boring everyone, Roman was listening. He says, Seth, the tribal chief, you are the tribal chief's number one hater. And the sad thing, the sad thing about being the number one hater is that's the only thing you are number one at, Seth. Roman says that what he hates the most, Seth has these people confused and thinking that they're on the same level when it couldn't be further from the truth. He says that at SummerSlam, I'm going to end that. And he ends the idea that they are comparable at all. And he will show them what number one really looks like. Seth, after signing the contract and having Roman signing the contract, he hands it to Adam Pearce. Thank you, Roman, for keeping my title warm. Since WrestleMania, I'll be taking it from you at SummerSlam, and my brother, I'll see you the next time you want to show up for work. And he goes to leave. Seth's walking up the ramp and says into the camera, "It's that easy when it comes to him. It's like taking candy from a baby." And Roman calls him out and asks, "Is that really it? You're just going to sign and run?" Roman says, "Seth, what if you do win at SummerSlam? What if you do win the champion? You're going to carry it for a few months and walk out of SummerSlam as champion? You're going to carry it for a couple of months and then get hurt again?" I mean, don't act shocked. That's what happens every single time. Controversial, but true. Unfortunately for Seth Rollins. Roman says, "I may call it self-sabotage because some people here just handle the weight and the pressure and the burden of being the top guy around here." Seth is provoked to going back into the ring and squares up with Roman and says, "Is that all? If you got something to say it. Don't hold back." Roman says, "I'll say it. I'll say it because everyone is thinking. Everyone knows Seth is still number 2 after all these years because he has still needed a Money in the Bank briefcase to become champion. If you thought that was bad enough, he had to fake an injury, fake a damn injury just to cash it in. Let's be honest here. If there was ever a time for Seth to be number 1, it's with his work daddy, Triple H, running this damn joint. And they tried, boy, did they try to give Seth all of Roman's stuff, and he still couldn't walk in my shoes. At the end of the day, Seth is always gonna be number 2. And he's gonna be number 2 because I'm number 1 and I'm always gonna be number 1. And just acknowledge that, bitch. Seth turns, looks away, and he says, "Is that all you got? Is that all you've got, Roman?" Seth tells Roman about how I'm never going to be as big as you or draw as much money as you or main event as many WrestleManias as you because this isn't for Seth. It's all for Roman. Seth says he told himself the same thing 15 years ago. The difference is at one point he looked in the mirror and he had to be proud of who he is and what he fights for because he is a visionary. He is a revolutionary. He is Seth freaking Rollins. And he is glad that he's not Roman. For a little bit, there's silence. Seth then strikes Roman whilst he fakes to turn around. He starts to kick him while he's down. Seth Reigns strikes down upon Roman. And he says to him whilst he's laying down, "I know who I am. I know who I am, you piece of shit. Where's your bloodline now?" Roman recovers, hits Seth Rollins with a Superman punch, and Roman attempted the powerbomb through the table, and whilst on his shoulders, boom, he hits him with the microphone. And the segment finishes with Seth Rollins ironically landing a pedigree followed by a stomp on Roman in the center of the ring, asserting his dominance once again. Now, people, I'm scared for Roman because I don't know what's going to happen at SummerSlam because Seth Rollins has won every single time and he never lost that title. He never lost to Roman Reigns. And taking that all in, wow, what an episode of Monday Night Raw, because we just had a very good SmackDown, in my opinion, and now we had this with the Gauntlet match, with the segment between Roman and Seth, with Bayley and Lyra, with the Vision, with Obafemi and Brock Lesnar, with the Bloodline, Royce Keys and Solo Sikoa. I was taken back, and I'm going to give that whole show a good, solid 8 out of 10, maybe 8.2 out of 10, because I'm being kind of generous, and because I'm liking what I've seen, and everything's running so smoothly. Now, we move on because there's going to be more shows. Saturday night's main event coming up, another big Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, and then we will move on to SummerSlam in Minnesota. And guys, again, please come along on this journey with me, because wrestling moves so fast. I can't wait for more shows to come. Again, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. I have been your host, Tugi, and remember that everything is Roxanne. Look after yourselves, baby. Stay blessed. Peace and love, baby. Peace and love.